Hi and welcome to the channel. So today we will build another SFF PC using the Lian A4H2O. So the Lian A4H2O is an 11-liter case that can fit a 240 AIO liquid cooler. It can fit in a 3-slot GPU, which makes the case really modern before the RTX 4090 came. It cost 8,700 pesos and inclusive of that is the PCIe Gen 4 riser. This is probably the most popular SFF case in SFF PC subreddit due to its size and capabilities, and this will be my first ever mainstream SFF build. So anyway, I've opened this box just for verification. On opening, you'll see their manual, which is a booklet, which is good, by the way. Then this is the case itself. So upon unboxing, you can see that it's actually very small. It's definitely not the smallest that I've seen, but pretty much compact. So around the case, you can see the power extension cable assembled already, PCIe cutouts, and motherboard cutouts. So notice that the PCIe is also upside down. The screw is here below. So the front literally has nothing. The side has the power switch, USB-C, USB cable, and headphone and microphone jacks. Anyway, let's try to see if we can do this toolless. So it has 4 screws at the back. So by right, I can pop out everything from this case. So these are using push pins, toolless by the way. So I brought in my screwdriver set, but it seems that it is not needed. Yeah, it should be. Yeah, there you go. So the panels aren't interchangeable, so you can see the position of this thing here is positioned differently. So by default, they have a PCIe riser. So remove the 4 screws here. It's not completely toolless. So remove the PSU shroud as well. Some screws, and there's some standoffs here. Oh, nice. So they came in a resealable package. I'm not sure what this is for, but it looks like a standoff. Is this for the PCIe? Anyway, we'll know later. Then screws. So mostly motherboard and PSU screws. Then zip ties, and one of the things that I'll know later. As for the cables, they have a power switch, HD audio, a USB 3, and USB-C. So I will not be able to use this since my motherboard doesn't have a USB-C header. I do have a USB 3.2 to USB-C header, but I am going to need that for this one. And then the extension cable. So first, I'm going to use the Zeaginal ZC240, which I assembled in my previous build. But it seems that I have to remove it since there's no way that I can insert this here. Okay, so first step is to mount the radiator to the radiator mount. So it will be like this. So my suggestion for screwing this type of things where there's no exact screw hole is to screw one corner first, then screw the other corner. So screw lightly. Technically, you're good with 4 screws, but better be safe than sorry. So at this point, you can tighten since you have already positioned the screws. So put this here. Looks flushed enough. So next is to install the motherboard. So this is the motherboard and CPU. I'm using the usual B550i Aorus Pro AX. CPU is Ryzen 7 5800X. And the storage is Samsung 980 1TB. So by right, you have to install this here. But later it will be tough for me to install the cables. So I will install some now. So HD audio is located here. USB 3.2 located here. Power switch is here. Then the fan is here. Okay, since it's ready to be dropped off now. There you go. Oh, it has a... This is very smart. This is very smart. So there's actually a hole here so that you can at least put your fingers inside. So I'm not sure if all ITX motherboards will have the power connector on the left side, but they should be. There's no other place to put it. This should be enough. I forgot to screw the motherboard first. Should be the first step before applying thermal paste. So they're using the standard motherboard screw, which has a crown. I forgot one thing as well. So I forgot to remove this. So now it's time to put this guy here. So 3 turns at a time. So as for the pump headers, I put it here. As for the RAM, I'll be installing this Kingston Fury Beast RGB 32GB 3600 MHz CL18 RAM. So this is too thick. I think it's best if I could rotate it the other way. Can I do that? So my display will be displayed upside down if I do that. Anyway, let's see if I can do that. Uh-oh. So I made the mess up since I pulled the processor, but just cleaning it up. So good thing that the thermal paste isn't conductive. So if you are going to clean your motherboard with isopropyl alcohol, I suggest to not start it. So anyway, I have to wait a few minutes before I can resume. Just need to dry this out.
A few moments later.
So I dried out the alcohol first, just to be sure a bit. So even though I'll plug this in now, I'll have to wait for a day before I'll boot it up, just to be sure. So I'll put on the thermal paste again. Okay, next is the power supply. So as for the power supply, I'll be using the CoolerMaster V850. So this is an 850 watt gold power supply. So the fan should be facing this way. So it will be like this. So I have to turn it on. And the power extension here. Oh, it's like this. I think I have to plug in the motherboard power. It seems that I will not have enough clearance later on. So it should be like this. Next step is to flip it upside down. So I can remove this slot here so that I can plug cables here. For example, this guy and this riser here. Next is to remove these guys. These three here. I should remove them now. So just remove two. I believe my graphics card is just a 2-slot thing. So as for the graphics card, I'll be using the big boy again, which is the RTX 3070 from Asus. So I need to free up 2 slots from the back. So by default, it will not fit. You can pop this thing. Okay. Remove this thing, by the way. So it's not flat because of the cables at the front, which I'll fix later. Oh, there you go. And I can lock it. So this thing goes here. Okay. So anyway, big problem is still this part here, which is very messy.
A few moments later.
The problem is this pump host, which is very tough, by the way. Seems that I have to do it this way. So all the mess are in here. So it's good that they opened this up, otherwise it will be very tough. Now, the other tough part is squishing them down. Okay. Yeah, managed to close it. Build is done. So if you'll notice, the graphics card is upside down instead of the motherboard being upside down. Anyway, it's time to test this for 1 day more because it might short because of the alcohol that I've put.
One eternity later.
Okay, as for post-build comments, it did not boot successfully at first as the PCIe riser was detached from the motherboard. After that issue was resolved, it managed to post. Next issue that I encountered was during benchmarking FF15 in 1440p. Within 15 minutes of the benchmark, the overcurrent protection or OCP tripped and I was not able to turn on the PC. The likely cause is the known transient spikes that occur in 30 series GPUs. For more information, do check out Gamers Nexus video on this. To troubleshoot that it was the PSU, I swapped it out to a different PSU and turned it on successfully. After a bit of googling, I found out that you need to flip the switch manually to reset the OCP state. No plugging in and plugging out can save you on this, which is a hassle in most ITX cases since the PSU switch is hidden. Anyway, after flipping the switch off and on, it managed to power on the computer. But I can't definitely proceed with the same PSU, and so I decided to buy an FSP Dagger Pro 850 50-watt gold power supply. It is compatible with ATX 3.0 connectors, which is a plus for modern NVIDIA hardware. I do commend FSP for having great flexible cables in this lineup. It makes the twisting very easy. Also, don't think of this as CoolerMaster having a weak PSU, but I think it's just that this line of CoolerMaster PSUs are not ready for 30 series graphics card. Meanwhile, I think that FSP's Dagger Pro is just ready for transient spikes since they have a PCIe 5 connector. It means that this is a modern and they know the transient spike issues and have probably addressed it in this line. Anyway, after swapping out the PSU, I was able to benchmark in 1440p and 4K as well. As for the temps while benchmarking Cinebench R23, it maxed out at 90 degrees Celsius. As for the temps while benchmarking FF15 for 30 minutes, the GPU averaged at 71.18 degrees Celsius and a max temp of 73.3 degrees Celsius, with a hotspot temp average of 83.89 degrees Celsius and a max temp of 87.4 degrees Celsius, which is pretty much normal for this GPU. The CPU temps, however, averaged at 74.66 degrees Celsius with a max temp of 87.4 degrees Celsius, which I find it too hot for this AIO, but generally tolerable. I tried to air cool the CPU by using ID Cooling IS55, however, I was not able to mount the fan securely. I just left it hanging there and closed the side panels, which turned out great as the height of IS55 is beyond the limit of this case, and so it snugged securely. It was loud during benchmarking, but the CPU averaged at 70.06 degrees Celsius and a max temp of 80 degrees Celsius, a good 4 degrees Celsius improvement. The GPU was not improved much at an average of 69.78 degrees Celsius with a max temp of 71.9 degrees Celsius, a 1.4 degrees Celsius improvement, which for me is somewhat negligible. While you might think that, oh, the CPU gets too hot for this case, but what I'd like to say is that this tiny case was able to contain a 260 watt GPU, and after benchmark, it only takes less than a minute to reach a sub 50 degrees Celsius temperature for both GPU and CPU. However, I still find it ironic that the air cooler performed better than the AIO in this quote-unquote H2O case. As for the case, if you want to properly mount an SSD, be prepared to be squished by the PCIe cables. I somehow understand why they want to flip the GPU for cooling purposes, but it makes it hard for cable management as usually the PCIe power connectors are long, and yet it is beside the PSU. I would recommend considering custom cable lengths in this case. I also like the hole where you can plug in the 8-pin CPU power connector. The PSU shroud is also something that I like as it hides some of the mess in your build. The front cutout was simply a genius design to fit in previous gen Asus Strix cards. Having removable panels is definitely a good thing, but the best part of it is the removable bottom panel. It was just so easy to route cables with it. Although I'd like to highlight more is the Lian list manual. It is in great detail and even the tube routing was specified properly. As for size comparison, this is slightly thicker than the PCCOOLER i100 Pro oven to accommodate the 3-slot GPU, but definitely taller to accommodate for the radiator and fan as well. As for the build itself, if you're going for an AIO, I think you should buy a well-reviewed AIO as the ZC240 might not be cut out for this case. Overall, this case is not bad, not phenomenal but acceptable CPU temperatures, good manual, good compatibility, expensive but it includes the riser which makes it similarly priced to the PCCOOLER i100 Pro oven. It is available locally, designed properly, and so I'd recommend it for SFF beginners. Okay, so that's it for this video. Do comment down below on what you think. Thanks for watching. Do like or dislike and subscribe for more unboxing and benchmarks. Bye!